What if I told you that reality is speaking to you right now? Not in a vague, poetic way, but literally, moment by moment by moment, crying to catch your attention with signs, patterns, and events that are so perfectly timed, it feels like they couldn't possibly be random. And yet, for most of your life, you've been trained to look right past them. The song that comes on just as you're thinking about someone from your past. The number that keeps appearing on receipts, license plates, and clocks. The stranger you bump into who just happens to have the exact answer. You've been searching for. These moments are not meaningless. They are deliberate. They are invitations. And deep down, you've always known it. But somewhere along the way, you were convinced that they were nothing more than coincidences, and you stopped listening. The truth is, these moments, what we call synchronicities, not accidents. They're carefully woven into your life by a deeper intelligence that's been quietly guiding you since the day you were born. Ancient civilizations understood this. Mystics, shamans, and philosophers devoted entire lifetimes to studying it. But in today's world, we're told it's all just chance, luck, or imagination. Why? Because when you understand synchronicities, you realize reality isn't what you've been told. And if you realize that, you start waking up to your own power, and that's the last thing the system wants. From the moment you entered this world, you were immersed in a carefully constructed framework designed to shape how you think, what you believe, and what you pay attention to. You were taught that the world is a machine code, logical, predictable, with no room for mystery. Everything had to have a neat, rational explanation. Anything that didn't fit into that box was dismissed as superstition, imagination, or just a coincidence. But what if that wasn't just a cultural quirk? What if it was deliberate? What if the suppression of synchronicities, these subtle, perfectly timed messages, was an intentional part of your conditioning? Think back to your childhood. Back then, you were naturally in tune with energy, intuition, and patterns. You noticed how events lined up, how you could sense things before they happened, how you knew someone was about to call before the phone even rang. But when you tried to talk about it, you were told, that's just your imagination, or don't be silly, that's not real. Slowly, you learned to silence that awareness, to only believe what could be proven, measured, and explained. And with that, a vital part of your connection to reality's deeper intelligence began to fade. School reinforced the same message. You weren't taught to follow your intuition, recognize patterns, or trust subtle nudges from reality. You were taught to memorize facts, follow rules, and obey authority. Creative thinking, abstract ideas, and deep inner knowing were pushed aside in favor of rigid logic and hard data. If you couldn't see it, weigh it, or measure it, it didn't exist. And questioning that worldview, that was discouraged, even punished. The system thrives on keeping you in your head, disconnected from the truth that your mind is far more than a passive observer, an active participant in shaping your reality. But you were never supposed to know that. Instead, mainstream science, at least the materialist, narrow version that dominates public thinking, became the ultimate gatekeeper of truth. It told you the universe is random, meaningless, and entirely explainable by chance. See 11:11 on a clock. That's just a trick of your brain, a cognitive bias. Meet the perfect person at the perfect time. Pure luck. In this worldview, nothing has deeper meaning, and everything is stripped of its magic. But history tells a different story. Some of the most brilliant minds who ever lived, Carl Jung, Nikola Tesla, Albert Einstein, understood that reality is far from random. Jung coined the term synchronicity after observing countless events that connected in ways no logic could explain. Tesla often spoke about the importance of patterns and frequency in understanding the nature of the universe. Einstein admitted there's a deeper order behind what we see, one that science hasn't fully grasped. These weren't fringe thinkers, they were pioneers of their fields. And yet, in our modern culture, to talk openly about synchronicities is to risk being called irrational, naive, or even delusional. People who trust these signs are dismissed as woo, while those who cling to a purely materialist worldview are praised as smart and reasonable. This is not an accident, a form of social conditioning. If you want to keep people from discovering their true power, you make sure they never learn to trust the language of the universe. The moment you start paying attention to synchronicities, something shifts. You begin to realize you are not a small, powerless individual adrift in a meaningless universe that mirrors your inner state and responds to your thoughts, emotions, and intentions. And once you see that, you can't unsee it. You begin to notice more signs, more patterns, more perfectly timed coincidences that lead you toward growth, opportunity, and transformation. That's when the real awakening begins. But before we go deeper, you have to understand why these signs appear in the first place, what they mean, and how they're meant to guide you. In the next part, we'll explore the hidden mechanics of synchronicities, how they work, why they seem to multiply once you notice them, and how you can use them to consciously shape your life. If synchronicities are messages from a deeper intelligence, the next question is obvious. How do they actually work? What is happening beneath the surface that makes certain events line up so perfectly in your life? The answer requires us to Look beyond the narrow framework we've been given and into the deeper mechanics of reality itself. For decades, we've been taught that our minds are passive observers of the outside world, like a camera recording whatever happens. But modern neuroscience and even certain branches of physics are painting a very different picture. Your mind is not just watching reality. It's interacting with it, shaping it, and filtering it in ways you may not even realize. Take the reticular activating system, or RAS for short. It's a small network of neurons in your brainstem, but it has a massive influence on your perception. The RAS determines what information gets through to your conscious mind and what gets filtered out. Have you ever bought a new car and then suddenly noticed that exact model everywhere? The cars were always there, you just weren't tuned in to see them. That's the RAS in action. And this same mechanism applies to synchronicities. The moment you start paying attention to them, your brain begins to prioritize them. Suddenly, what you once dismissed as random starts appearing more often. Not because it's new, but because you've shifted your focus to see what was already there. But here's where it gets more interesting. The RAS isn't working in isolation. It's part of a much larger feedback loop between your mind and reality. What you focus on shapes your internal state. Your internal state influences your energy, and your energy, your thoughts, emotions, and beliefs affects what experiences you attract and notice. This is where science starts brushing up against ancient wisdom. The law of vibration, a concept rooted in metaphysics for centuries, tells us that everything in the universe is made of energy, vibrating at different frequencies. Your body, your thoughts, your emotions, they all carry a frequency. When you're fearful, anxious, or doubtful, your frequency is low, and you tend to attract situations that match that energy. When you're focused, inspired, and aligned, your frequency is higher, and life reflects that back to you through opportunities, supportive people, and yes, more synchronicities. This isn't just spiritual fluff. Even at the subatomic level, particles behave differently when they are observed, as demonstrated in the famous double-slit experiment. Observation changes reality. This suggests that consciousness itself, your awareness, plays an active role in shaping the world you experience. So, when you're tuned into synchronicities, you're not just noticing them. You're actually creating conditions for more of them to happen. Your subconscious mind is also a major player in this process. While your conscious mind handles day-to-day decisions, your subconscious is constantly processing massive amounts of information, making connections and guiding you in ways you may not consciously notice. When you set a clear intention, whether it's finding the right job, meeting the right person, or discovering a new path, your subconscious starts aligning your actions and attention to match that goal. It's like planting a seed in fertile soil. Your conscious mind may not see the roots growing, but beneath the surface, connections are forming that will eventually lead to the outcome you desire. This is why people who truly believe in synchronicities often experience them more frequently. Their subconscious mind is actively scanning the environment for patterns and opportunities that match their intentions. The moment those alignments appear, they notice them, and the cycle continues. Attention leads to recognition. Recognition leads to more attention, and the momentum builds. Of course, skeptics will argue that all of this is just selective attention, that synchronicities are nothing more than random events we choose to notice. And yes, selective attention plays a role, but that explanation falls apart when you look at the precision and timing of many synchronicities. Think about the times you've been wrestling with a difficult decision, and then, out of nowhere, you meet someone who has the exact insight you needed. Or when you're feeling completely lost, and a book, a song, or even a random conversation provides a message so specific it feels like it was placed there just for you. That's not just your brain cherry-picking information. That's a targeted alignment between your inner world and your outer reality. The statistical odds of such moments happening by pure chance, repeatedly and meaningfully, are extremely low. When they happen often enough, the idea of just coincidence stops making sense. Different traditions have their own explanations for where synchronicities come from. In psychology, Carl Jung believed they were expressions of the collective unconscious, a vast shared layer of human thought and experience that connects us all. In Eastern philosophy, similar ideas are described through concepts like karma and divine timing, the idea that certain events are destined to unfold at the right moment. In quantum physics, the concept of non-locality suggests that everything in the universe is interconnected beyond the limitations of space and time. And then there's the perspective that we live in a simulation, where synchronicities are the system's way of sending us coded hints or nudges, much like a video game giving you clues to the next level. Whether you interpret them as messages from your higher self, a universal intelligence, or even a complex simulation, the effect is the same. Synchronicities are calls to pay attention. They are reality's way of pulling you out of autopilot and into conscious awareness. The key is that once you start engaging with these signs, they begin to multiply. At first, you may notice them once in a while, a number sequence here, a chance encounter there. But as your awareness sharpens, the patterns become more frequent and more complex. You might start seeing connections between events that happen days or weeks apart, realizing they were part of a larger unfolding. You may notice that certain thoughts or emotions are consistently followed by specific types of synchronicities. This is where synchronicities shift from being random to being a languagey, symbolic communication between you and the deeper forces that shape your reality. And just like any language, the more fluent you become, the more nuanced the messages get. Here's the part most people overlook. Synchronicities aren't just there to make you feel good or give you a moment of wonder. They're functional. They guide you. They reveal paths you might have missed. They confirm when you're aligned with your true direction, and sometimes they warn you when you're not. This means your relationship with synchronicities is not passive. You can work with them. You can invite them. You can even use them to deliberately shape your path. But doing that requires more than just noticing them. It requires understanding how to tune your mind, body, and emotions into the right frequency, how to set intentions clearly, and how to stay open to guidance even when it comes from unexpected places. And this is where most people hit a wall, because the modern world has trained us to value control over openness, certainty over curiosity. We want the roadmap before we take the journey. But synchronicities rarely work like that. They unfold step by step, often revealing just enough to encourage you forward without showing you the whole picture. Learning to trust this process is where the real transformation begins. In the next part, we'll go into exactly how to invite more synchronicities into your life, how to interpret them when they appear, and how to turn them from random sparks into a steady flow of guidance that can completely reshape the way you live. So how do you actually invite more synchronicities into your life? How do you move from noticing the occasional coincidence to living in a steady rhythm of guidance and alignment? The first step is simple in theory, but powerful in practice. You have to start paying attention. Awareness is like a spotlight. Wherever you shine it, you see more. Begin by making a conscious decision to watch for patterns, numbers, symbols, and perfectly timed events in your daily life. Keep a journal, even if it's just a note in your phone. When something catches your attention, a repeating number, a song at the perfect moment, a meaningful conversation, write it down. This simple act does two things. It tells your subconscious that these moments matter, and it trains your mind to stay alert for more. Think of it like tuning a radio. The more you practice, the clearer the signal becomes. Next, get intentional about your focus. Remember, your thoughts and emotions carry a frequency, and that frequency shapes the reality you experience. If your mind is scattered or constantly dwelling on problems, Your energy will be misaligned, and the signs you notice will reflect that. But when you focus on clarity, purpose, and openness, you create conditions for synchronicities that move you forward. Set clear intentions each day. This doesn't mean obsessively controlling every detail, means deciding what you want to feel, where you want to grow, and what you're ready to receive. You might say, "I'm open to guidance today," or "Show me the next step toward my goal." Then, as you go about your day, stay relaxed but alert. Often, the sign you're looking for will show up in a way you didn't expect: a conversation with a stranger, a sudden opportunity, even an obstacle that forces you to change direction. Interpreting synchronicities is the next skill to develop. Not every sign will be obvious at first. Sometimes, the meaning is a media phone call from someone you were just thinking about might confirm that your intuition is strong. Other times, the meaning will reveal itself over days or weeks. This is where trust comes in. When a synchronicity happens, ask yourself, what was I thinking or feeling right before this? Does this connect to something I've been focused on? Is it pointing me toward action or away from something? Over time, you'll start to notice patterns in your patterns, recurring symbols, themes, or situations that carry personal meaning for you. That's the universe speaking in your own private language, and once you understand it, the guidance becomes much clearer. The key to making this work long-term is to stay in a state of openness without slipping into obsession. If you chase signs desperately, you can start seeing meaning where there isn't any, and that can cloud your judgment. Synchronicities are like subtle nudges from a trusted friend. They work best listening and willing to act on them without overthinking. Action is critical here. A synchronicity without follow-through is like getting a map and never taking the trip. If you meet someone who could help with your project, reach out. If you see an opportunity that feels right, explore it. The universe can line up the perfect conditions, but you still have to step forward. Another way to strengthen your connection to synchronicities is to align your lifestyle with presence. Modern life is full of distractions, constant notifications, endless scrolling, background noise that keeps your mind scattered. The more present you are, the easier it is to notice subtle connections and timing. Practices like meditation, journaling, or simply spending time in nature quiet your mental noise and make it easier to pick up on the patterns around you. This doesn't mean you have to live in a cave or meditate for hours a day. Just means creating small pockets of stillness where awareness can expand. Often, the biggest signs appear when you're not forcing anything, when you're simply open and observing. It's also important to approach synchronicities with gratitude. Gratitude is one of the most powerful ways to shift your frequency because it focuses your attention on what's working and what's possible. When you experience a synchronicity, take a moment to acknowledge it and feel thankful, even if you don't fully understand it yet. This simple act creates a positive feedback loop, raises your vibration, which attracts more aligned experiences, which gives you more to be grateful for. Over time, you'll notice that life feels less like a series of random events and more like an ongoing conversation between you and the universe. One thing to remember is that synchronicities are not always about instant gratification. Sometimes they point toward challenges, lessons, or changes you need to make before you can move forward. You might get signs encouraging you to leave a situation that's comfortable but holding you back. You might be guided toward people who challenge your beliefs or push you to grow. These moments can feel uncomfortable, but they are still part of the guidance. The deeper intelligence behind synchronicities isn't just trying to make life easier. It's trying to make you more aligned, more aware, and more capable of living your true purpose. As you build your relationship with synchronicities, you'll likely notice something surprising. The more you follow them, the more they seem to shape the big events in your life. Jobs, relationships, creative breakthroughs, they begin to arrive through a chain of perfectly timed connections that make the random chance explanation impossible. This is where synchronicities stop being occasional sparks and start becoming a way of life. You move from living reactively, waiting for life to happen to you, to living intentionally, co-creating your path with the intelligence that's been there all along. And here's the truth that most people never hear. You've always been connected to this deeper flow. The signs, the patterns, the perfect timing, they were never absent. You just weren't tuned in. The moment you start paying attention, the connection reveals itself. And once you see it, you can't go back to pretending life is random. Synchronicities are reality's way of saying you're on the right track. They are proof that you are part of something vast, intelligent, and responsive. The only question now is whether you'll listen.